Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Certainly, yeah, improved care equals improved longevity, and this is to be applauded. And it's sometimes we have to be careful about using language and referring to it as a problem. It's not. It is a situation that to be again to be applauded, not be considered as a problem. Or I think words used earlier, old people, the number of old people is getting worse and worse. It's a very good thing. But my question is, the staff who are providing the care to help the people, we obviously are doing it under budget. Are we making savings such as the morale of those people who are actually providing the care is being reduced? What are we doing to maintain their morale? Like paying travelling time?
I think certainly in terms of improving morale and matters that concern staff, that's really a question more for Ms. Wakeling than it is for me. But certainly in relation to staffing numbers, we do of course ensure that we provide a service and or get the provision from elsewhere, ensure that third parties have the right number of staff in place and whatever relevant grade they ought to be in order to make sure that our statutory duties and those that we commission for people to provide are met in those circumstances. One of the things about staffing is that where in certain quarters you may feel that you could reduce the number of staff in some way, certainly with our social services, again, depending on the demand and the nature of the services being provided. It really depends on the type of staff you have and how many staff you have at any given time. I think also where people choose to take a direct payment personal budget and they choose how they spend that money, of course you could say they're staff in inverted commas because of the way they choose to take the money and employ that. So again, it's a moving piece of work in terms of types of staff we have and how they're treated in that sense. You could say how we treat staff, you could say how service user treats the staff that they employ with the money that they receive in those circumstances. If you're talking about the staff that we have in-house, certainly Ms. Wakeling could comment on what we do for them and how the morale is kept up. Certainly on my part, I try to make sure they're happy with what they do and they're reminded of the work that they do and the value that it is placed on it by users, counsellors and the like. But certainly Ms. Wakeling can fill you in on finer detail that I'm not privy to, perhaps.
So it's a very broad question and warrants a whole scrutiny before we task and conclude the so I will need a necessity for very brief. There are no proposals to cut directly employed council staff in here other than the reduction of 3 agency workers in mental health. And that actually has come from structural changes in the mental health services in terms of the intake service into specialist mental health services. There's no service reduction, and the 3 posts are filled by local workers. We have, I suppose, we continue to support and protect the directly employed workforce. We have training programs. They will have personal development plans, they have obviously vision, we audit their casework, we support them 2 members, for example, of the College of Social Work, we're running safeguarding environment. With the care sector, we require all our contracted providers to pay the minimum wage. We check that people are appropriately registered, that they have their disclosure and borrowing check. In the CQC service, we do a whole load of workforce checks. We do not pay travelling time on our 3 main home care contracts. Although, because you asked a direct question, I know the answer, and it would be, but I think we are looking at how our home care commissioning may need to be amended in the future. The current contracts run until 2015. The commissioning of home care, I think, is a national issue. The Minister for Care has set up a working group to look at this. The National Institute for Clinical Excellence has an evidence group to look at this. Our practice in commissioning is entirely consistent with other local authorities' practice, but we do not include travel time on contracts.
Any other questions? Okay, no, I think the important thing that we establish is that anybody who has statutory requirements will be cared for, irrespective of whether this budget is the best estimate or it's low estimate, they will be looked after. So that's a fair comment.
Yes, it is. I can certainly say as well as a statutory duty to provide this service, and I think approximately 80% of the spend is on statutory services right now. Around it, nearest 10%, but certainly around 80% is on statutory services. I think there's two things to say. The first thing to say there is that there will come a point where you can't be much more efficient and make vendor procurement improvements rather than making cuts. Certainly we're not in a position where we want to make cuts, but rather in a position where we try and do things far more smartly. And if it does come to a point where we don't have enough money in this portfolio, and the demands that have been placed on this portfolio far more than other portfolios, respectfully, we will of course have to consider what more other portfolios have to do in the circumstances, because there is a public duty here with our social services to make sure that statutory duties are met, and in my opinion, a little more than that as well in terms of preventing some of these things as well. So certainly I say that in that context, because of course, if we do get to the point where we can't meet statutory duties, I don't envisage that, but if it were to happen, we'd certainly have a legal duty, but certainly I would have a duty as well to seek to look at other portfolios, which I do now anyway, but certainly a little bit more than I do now, to make sure they help out a lot more.
But in some cases, Sach, no matter what you do, no matter how much you do, it is never enough.
What?
In the opinion of some of the customers.
Well, people
Just ask a quick one of the Captain. Yeah, from your total revenue budget, do you have off the top of your head, a percentage for exactly how much is being spent with third-party providers who are essential to delivering all of these services that the adults services do?
Well, 80% of the spend is yeah, I mean, 80% of the spend is spent on statutory services. A lot of that statutory service is with third-party providers and others, so it would be in that sort of region. I mean, I can be more specific in writing to you if you want, but I'd say around 80-85% perhaps.
Okay, that's fine.
That's
very interesting.
Yeah.
And that's been the case for some considerable time.
Yeah, there's
Well,
not,
services,
in all fairness, what we give to third-party providers, what we have to provide on a statutory basis takes up the largest chunk of the revenue budget. Of course it does, and when we look, and I don't necessarily need to do this, but even if you look at 9.49 on page 24 of the report, when you consider the total savings for each delivery unit being set out there, you can see that adults and communities is far larger than anything else. And I simply mention that because it's quite right that adults plays its part to make a significant saving year on year, because of course it's spending rightly or wrongly the majority of the money, but there will come a point, and that's why I stress that. Not within the lifetime of this budget, because of course it's prudent figures up here, but I simply say that there will be a point if this goes on every year, where other portfolios will perhaps have to consider smarter ways, or further smarter ways of doing things to assist adults in due course. But I do feel that the budget that's before this committee is a safe budget, it's a prudent budget, and I don't feel that we're in a position where we're going to neglect anyone or not meet statutory duties. I'm quite happy to report to you accordingly.
Okay, so
Just a very brief one. E13 on page 34, the issue about reduction savings through reduced replacement costs for residents permanently settled out of the borough. Do we have any reciprocal directives? Do you have any cost calls with people moving into the borough on a similar sort of strategy, and what sort of costs are we looking at there?
I'm just looking at Miss Wakely here, she's nodding when I said I think we've got more moving than we have going. Well, it's a nice place to live. Certainly, I think Miss Wakely might be more specific on figures.
We, as you know, Barnet has the second highest number of registered care personnel in London. We also have a lot of supported living schemes. ordinary residence applies under certain circumstances, not all. On average, every year we would become responsible for the costs of, say, 40 older people who've moved themselves into a residential care home. And increasingly, other local authorities are placing people, mostly with learning disabilities, in supported living schemes. And then there is a negotiation normally carried out through me and the legal teams for both boroughs on who is responsible. So these we have identified specific people who genuinely meet all ordinary residence requirements to make a saving, but we are probably overall a net gainer of service users. And clearly, when the care bill becomes law in April 2015 with the new national, I think they're calling them portability entitlements, this could become a bigger issue.
You can get to it, yeah?
Just, given the comments and the fact that we recognise this budget's taking a particularly large hit, I just wanted to wish the cabinet member a success in bidding for a good share of the 1 million cabinet members pre-election slush fund. Probably they will. I wish we're not success in that.
That's noted. Thank you for the Thank you very much, Councillor Souch, and thank you.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much indeed.